All right, yeah, we might begin. So thanks everyone for joining. My name's Nick and I'm hosting today, and we have Ben Davies here to kick us off with an awesome workshop. Ben is a community manager for Pixabay team here at Canva, and he has a wealth of knowledge on how to create really engaging social media marketing and in the context of nonprofits. Without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Ben to run us through a really engaging presentation. So
thanks, Nick.
Thanks very
I'll
much.
give it a shot, and hopefully my laptop doesn't fall off the chair mid-presentation. Before we begin, I really want to cover something super, super important to me, and that is that I'm currently presenting on the land of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and I want to pay my respects to their elders and the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders elders all around our country, the future elders and the ones that are growing up around me right now. All right, and then hopefully my slide will behave. Okay, so today we're going to talk about mastering marketing and social media, but we're going to put a little bit of a twist on it because I know that most of you are not running million-dollar businesses. You're focusing on making a difference and changing the world. So I'm going to tailor what I'm teaching and sharing today to causes, social causes, not-for-profits, charities, and social enterprises. Before we dive all the way in though, I need to let you know that we're being recorded. Please, if you'd like to talk about this presentation or any of the other ones, throw a little Canva love hashtag on there and fire away in the Zoom chat with questions. I'm going to do my best to check in and see how everyone's doing throughout the presentation, but I'll also check in after. And I'll be in the Canva nonprofits community on Facebook. So I'm really, really keen to chat to as many of you as I can after this presentation goes up. And we'll be storing the slide deck and all of that there, as well as putting it on the event page and a few other places. All right, so we should probably get down to business. Let's talk about how to master marketing and social media if you're a not-for-profit, if you're a social enterprise, or if you're a small business. And I want to tell you where I've learned all these lessons from. And it's really from 3 places, although I've worked for quite a few more in my time. So I started learning about marketing at an organization called reachout.com. And ReachOut is one of the first online health organizations on the entire planet. And so I watched as they built out their marketing tactics, probably trying some things that charities and social causes had never tried before online. I then moved along to a place called Chuffed, and Chuffed is a crowdfunding platform. And while I was there, I helped charities and social causes raise over $1 million every single month. And finally, I've moved on to Canva, and I've been lucky enough to chat to people who are absolute experts on the world of marketing and digital marketing. And so what I'd like to do today is kind of smush all the things I've learned together into a little bit of a recipe. And this recipe has 3 ingredients. And you can make this recipe really complicated and add more ingredients if you want, or you can make it simpler if you're not ready to kind of go all the way and do a full stack marketing tactic. But the 3 ingredients you really need, and the 3 ingredients that I see every single successful cause use, are person, path, and performance, or perform. I just wanted something with like 3 Ps because it sounded cool. So we need to know who we are talking to. We need to build empathy, and we need to think about the very first person that we connect with, rather than worrying about the hundreds of thousands of people that will follow. The next thing we need to do is we need to understand what path the person you're talking to is on. Are they already a rabid fan of your cause, donating and raising money and things like that? Or have they just discovered you exist? Or do they not even know you exist yet and you need to talk to them about it? So we need to understand where the person is on their journey. And the last thing we need to do is we need to check, once we've got the person, we know where they are on the journey and we start talking to them, we need to check that the things we do when we talk to them are actually working. And that's what I mean by perform or performance. Now, there's lots of different recipes in the world. And the one I want to share today is kind of like the Jamie Oliver level of recipe. It's going to be really tasty. It's going to be pretty healthy. It's going to work. And it's not going to take you too much time. Now, at Canva, there's a lot of marketers who do the master chef level. and they do very, very complicated, very, very high level tactics, but they still use the same ingredients. They just prepare them a little bit more carefully. But some of you might not be ready for the Jamie Oliver marketing recipe. You might still be just keen on making 2-minute noodles, getting something out the door. And so we're going to have a few exercises, a few things we can do today that will help you get started on really effective marketing in 2 minutes or less. So we should get started on finding our person. Now, the reason I want to talk about finding a person is because marketing is like a wedding. Now, I don't know if people can kind of hear me, but who's been to a wedding? I'm assuming everyone in this chat. Yeah, I'm getting a few hands from the 2 people in this room. And I'm seeing a little bit of a nod from Nick that yes, everyone's been to a wedding. Come on, Ben, what's the point? So at weddings, there's often a dance. The knot's tied, the rings are exchanged, and then there's the first dance where the bride and groom get on the floor and start dancing. And initially, everybody else kind of stands back and they kind of watch because it's this special moment between the bride and groom. But over time, people start to shift in. But there's this bit, there's this little bit at the beginning where people are uncertain, where people aren't sure. Should I go in? Should I be the first one? I'm not sure if I should because, what if I ruin this beautiful dance? And so usually, at least what happened when I got married about a year ago now, was my uncle had a few too many beers and he jumped in and he started dancing all by himself. And that tipped the tide. That shifted things because once my drunk uncle was happily dancing away, everyone else felt comfortable to join in. And so what we need to do is we need to find the drunk uncle. Perhaps not, but we need to find our first follower. We need to find someone who really believes in our cause and who's already really connected. And we need to build lots and lots of empathy with them. And this is a concept that I borrowed from this guy down in the bottom right corner of my slide. And I'm going to stand there just in case. His name's Prashant Paramanathan and he founded Chuffed. And so Prashant talks about the first follower a lot in his work. And really what happens is if you can get that first person and you can really understand them and you can connect with them and you can tell them what they need to hear to support your cause, to buy your product or whatever it is, then the next 10,000 people and even the next million people will actually be a whole lot easier than that first person. If you start with one, I can guarantee you there will be another 10,000 people at least who are very similar to that first person. And so we need a bit of a tool to identify our first follower and think about what makes them tick. And so we want, oops, sorry, my slides are being a bit weird. Okay, cool. My presentation clicker thing sometimes doesn't listen to me. So how do you build empathy? How do you build empathy at scale? How do you do it in a way where you can share what you've learned and share that empathy that you've built for your first follower with a team of people or with your board? And one technique that a lot of marketers use is what's called the persona or the user archetype. And so here's an example of that. And really all it is just dividing up the different things that we want to understand about the person into sections so that we can kind of quickly build that empathy, but then share what we've learned with other people. And so a lot of this will probably make sense to you. We've got demographics. In this case, it's Tammy, the fundraising photographer. And she's a photographer who loves to crowdfund. She loves to raise money for the cause that she really believes in. So for her, she's right at the end of the journey. She's already an advocate. She's already convinced she wants to support you. And I guess there's a couple of things though, she still has some frustrations and some objections and some problems. And it's really important to understand those things. So one of the biggest problems she has, one of the biggest objections, and this is something you will see whenever you're looking for a donor for your cause or a volunteer, is she's not sure if the money actually is used to make a difference. She wants to know what the impact is. Something else I want to draw your attention to is the channels and sources of information section. So we really want to understand where our person goes to connect with their friends, to run their business if they have a business, or to do their work. and also where they go to entertain themselves. So Tammy, the fundraising photographer, she's on TikTok, WhatsApp, and Instagram. So if we're marketing to her, we definitely don't want to post on Facebook. She's not there. The other thing is, where does she get her information from? What does she do? Does she read, in Australia, we have the Sydney Morning Herald. Is that where she gets her information, or does she get it from somewhere else? In Tammy's case, she's on Medium all the time and looking at the endless stream of articles there. And she also looks up to a particular influencer called Savannah LeBrant. And she's this amazing mother and really cool person. And so whenever Savannah has an opinion about something, Tammy's generally very interested in that and likely to be convinced. And that's useful because perhaps you could connect with Savannah and get her to share your story or the story of your cause. But the most important thing here, and this is something that doesn't exist in most marketing personas, is the giving roles section. So if you're in business marketing and you're trying to sell a television or something like that, you would have buying roles here. But when you have someone who wants to volunteer for your cause or donate, we have giving roles. So we need to understand, why do people give? Why do people support social causes? And there's a couple of reasons. And for some reason, I really like alliteration today. So everything's starting with the same letter. So some people give for the glory of it. So some people want to make it really public and share that they're giving. These are people who often will participate in crowdfunding activities or fundraising events like Dry July or Movember. And there's nothing wrong with a bit of glory. I think it's really important to share that you are proud that you're supporting something, that you're proud that you support something. Another reason why people give is guilt. And this is something that we see a lot of charities and social causes use in order to try to convince people to donate. And so I'm mentioning it even though I'm actually pretty against it. I don't think you should guilt trip people into donating. Nevertheless, we see campaigns, fundraising campaigns all over the world of a sad, lonely kid or a starving person or something like that. And the reason why I'm against guilt is because we get something called donor fatigue very quickly. People get tired of hearing the sad stories. So you might get a really strong donation the first time, but you're not likely to keep this person in your community. You're not likely to build your crowd of supporters. So it's kind of risky. It's like a one shot. And then there's the glow. It feels good to give. Simple as that. But you want to help people feel that glow. So if you're trying to create that glow, you need to show them the impact of what you're doing. Then there's grow. So some people give because they want to learn something about themselves. They want to build their skills. Perhaps they want to volunteer in an organization where they can learn more. Or perhaps they want to donate to a cause because it's going to support a campaign they're on or something like that. Finally, there is greed, and also an extra comma. I forgot to delete that, sorry. It's driving me nuts. So greed, so a lot of the time, people donate because they want the perks. A lot of fundraising campaigns will give you, I don't know, a signed photo or a little toy or a sticker or something like that. So some people are in it for the reward, and that's absolutely okay too, especially because a lot of the time when we're doing a social cause or we're trying to get donations or volunteers, what we give is much, much smaller than what the person donates or the time that they give in return. So here's a template of the persona. And I'll link to the slides a little bit later so that you can copy it. But this actually lives in a number of Canva templates already. So just search, I think it's business plan, and you'll actually see this exact persona, which I thought was cool. All right, so we talked about this long, complicated persona, and it would take a while to fill out. But the 2-minute version is actually pretty straightforward. And that is just to think about who supports you right now. Who's backing you up right now? If you are an actual business rather than a social enterprise or a not-for-profit who has a few different goals rather than just selling things, who's buying your products right now? The simplest thing to do is to go out and bring a notepad and have a chat to the next person who connects with your cause. Just take down a few notes and ask them these 2 questions. And I'm just going to pause here because I want you to try and answer these questions in the chat right now. So if you've got a person in your mind already, someone who is a supporter or someone who's engaged with your cause, what makes them angry? What pisses them off? Particularly if it relates to the difference you're trying to make in the world. What frustrates them? Is it if you're animal welfare cause, if you're supporting or protecting animals, is it the suffering of animals? Is that what makes them angry? Or is it something else? Nick's got something.
We've got a couple of responses coming in. So one person says global inequality.
Yeah. Getting complicated one, that one.
If it becomes salesy, so the hardline sales approach.
Yes, that's actually really cool. People have very strong. I don't think I'm allowed to swear, but they have strong BS detectors. Yeah.
We've got a few more coming in. Unfairness, racism, manipulation. There's a whole bunch of stuff coming in here.
Yeah, great. So this is really good. Although one thing I'm hearing there is it's a little bit too general. If you are tackling racism is this huge, giant problem that's got its tentacles into all different parts of society. And it's probably likely if you're working on a cause or trying to make a difference that fights racism, that you're doing it in one specific area. So think about what is the specific symptom of racism that you're trying to cure, because that's likely the thing that upsets the person, and that's probably why they want to support it. So as you talk to people, listen to what they're saying and listen to the real specifics, the tiny little specific things. And then the second reason, and this, knowing that specific pain point for that person and how you solve that pain point, that's going to tell you why does your person give. How many people, just can I have a show of hands in the chat maybe, how many people have donors or volunteers or people who support their cause? Is it anyone in there?
Oh yeah, we got a huge response here.
Okay, we got a flood of people. I wish I could see it, but unfortunately I've got a laptop on a chair. So, oh good, I can see stuff. Okay, very few donations. Yep, I have 2 donors. Great, that's amazing. You've got 2 donors. That's a freaking good start. You've got your first follower and another one. That's amazing. Just keep going. So why person who has 2 donors, or anyone who has a donor or a volunteer or someone who helps them, why do they give their time? Why do they give their money? For the cause. They trust your organization. Was that Nina? Oh, I think I just knew the person who commented there. Hi. There we go. They believe in the cause. Yeah. They empathize in the cause. Whoops. Sorry, my microphone just fell off. Okay. So isn't it interesting? Everyone's saying they believe, they trust. So it really tells you something about what you have to do when you're doing your marketing, when you're doing your campaigning. You need to build that trust with the next round of followers, with that next group of people, because the people who know you well, the people who are already connected, they already trust you. The biggest challenge you're going to have as you grow your cause, grow your donor base, or even grow your customers is giving that next round of people what they need to trust you. All right, that's enough of that. Now we're going to, and I'm just going to stand here. Although they can see the slide deck as well, right? Yeah, good. Okay. So we need to find the path. So we know who this person is. We've got a rough idea of what drives them, what motivates them, their reasons for giving. We know that we need to build trust with them, that's really important. But now we need to kind of understand what stage they're at. And the reason we need to do that is because we can actually tell, we can actually understand what's going on, what our problems are with marketing, where we should spend our money. This is a quote that I strongly disagree with. And if you ever hear a marketer or someone like that use this quote, run away. So the quote is, half the money I spend on advertising is wasted. The trouble is I don't know which half. Now, that was written in around 1902, something like that, back when cars looked like the one in that photo. But since then, we've become quite a bit more sophisticated. These days, we can track stuff. So these days, okay, we might not know exactly what is going to convince people to donate or buy our product or volunteer for our cause, but we definitely know, we can explain where like more than half of the money is having an impact. So that quote is officially dead. But how do we tell? How do we tell what work or effort we're putting in or what funding we're putting into advertising? How do we tell what is actually having an impact and what isn't? And I'd like to introduce you to a really cool concept called pirate metrics, which helps us understand that. And pirate metrics is so called because it's R. And obviously AARRR stand for 5 things that we should measure. And those 5 things are kind of the only 5 things you really, really need to take care of. Even at Canva, where we have a whole team of data scientists, we're kind of thinking to some degree in terms of those 5 metrics. Although there's a lot of different kind of moving parts when you've got an organization as big as Canva. So we need to understand what is the next step for our person. Where are they on their journey? Are they at the very top where they've just discovered your cause and they've just discovered that you exist? Or are they a little bit further down? Are they sort of following along but not sure if they should donate, not sure if they should buy your product, or not sure if they should volunteer? Or are they right at the bottom? Are they absolute rabid advocates for you? Are they donating? Are they recruiting other people? Are they fundraising? So this is what pirate metrics helps us understand. It helps us understand the point that the person is at. So we have acquisition, activation, retention, revenue, and referral. And it kind of makes sense. And at each point, we're answering one of these questions. So at acquisition, it's, is the person that you want, is your person able to find you? How many of these people are actually finding you? Is it enough? And is there something they can do to activate? Is there something they can do to actually connect with your cause so that you can keep them coming back and building trust with them? And that moves us on to retention. How are you building trust? What are you doing? And then finally, the last 2, are they paying you? Now, in a normal marketing business, revenue, or are they paying you, is pretty straightforward. Are people buying your product? But in the social cause and not-for-profit space, there's probably 2 additional types of revenue. They may be buying a product if you're a social enterprise, but they may also be donating, or they may be donating time. So you may want to track a slightly different metric to what a sort of typical straight up and down business does. And then finally, referral. Are they talking about you? Now, the interesting thing about this funnel, because it is a funnel, is that we're going to lose people along the way. Not everyone who discovers your cause is going to immediately fall in love with you. Unfortunately, some people won't understand what you're trying to do, or they'll never trust you. And that's okay. That's why we've got sort of a little sort of dip every time. We'll lose a few people, but that's okay, because if we're doing it right, the people we're connecting with are our people. They're the ones who really give us stuff about our cause. They're the ones who will come down to the bottom of that funnel and become avid advocates for you, and they will support you, and they will back you, and they will do your work for you to a degree. But to find those people, we really need to track numbers that actually matter. And a lot of the time when I've talked with social causes and businesses and all sorts of people that I've supported in my time in this space, they're not looking at the numbers that matter. They're looking at what we call vanity metrics. Does anyone know what a vanity metric is? I'm pretty sure a few of you do. It's basically a number that looks good, but probably doesn't tell you anything. It's a shallow metric. So a classic vanity metric is how many likes do you have on your Facebook page? And there's companies that have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of likes, but only 10 people actually view their posts. Okay, that 100,000 likes, I would trade that for just 1,000 people who actually read my posts. So we need to be careful with what we measure at each stage. And here are some example metrics. And I'm really, really looking forward to chatting to you all when we're in the Facebook group, because perhaps if you can give me an example of one of the problems, one of the stages that you have with your person, I can probably help you figure out the best way to measure it. and to make sure you're measuring what actually matters. But here's a few examples. And one of the examples I really want to draw your attention to is the retention one. So instead of looking at the number of people who follow your Facebook page, for example, or the number of people who like your Instagram, you actually want to just check a little bit at the end. How much is it going up and down a week? Is it going up and down every week more or less than it did the week before? What about more or less the year before? If you look at those sort of numbers, it's going to tell you if you're actually growing or you're kind of stuck. So, where is your person stuck? In all businesses, when you start to actually look at these numbers, and it does take a little time. It'll take you 3 or 4 hours to do this the first time, and maybe like an hour a month afterwards. But you're going to notice that there's going to be some big drops. At some stage, you'll go from sort of like, 100,000 people here, and then only 10 people will stick around and like your page. Or maybe 100,000 people like you every week, and 10,000 people actually like and comment, but they all leave after another week. So you want to figure that out because your person's on this journey and you want to do everything you can to help them to get to the bottom, to donate and to find other people to help you donate. Because if you do that, that's how you scale. That's how you grow like crazy. So where is your person stuck? Have a look at your metrics. I'm really keen to help you in the Canva not-for-profits community because if you haven't done this before, it can be a little annoying. And figure it out. So, on to the 2-minute recipe. Where do you think your person is getting stuck? Can I please be spammed with some comments, thoughts, ideas, or questions about this? Are you having trouble finding people in the first place? Or is it easy to find people? Stuck on activation. Yeah, activation is probably the hardest step. It's really easy to get awareness, but then it's hard to kind of go any further. And then the other thing is, well, okay, you know where they're stuck. What will tell you? Oh, for me, it's finding the people. Revenue, yeah, revenue is also pretty tricky. Awareness in a sea of activities for young children. Stuck on activation and revenue. Trouble getting comments, plenty of followers, and not enough engagement. Great, great. Okay, this is amazing. So you kind of know what the big problem is. Now it's like, okay, we'll talk about fixing the problem later, but how are you going to tell if you've fixed it? How are you going to measure it? Because you can try and fix it, but knowing whether or not you fixed it is probably almost as important as trying to fix it. So how can you measure whether or not, for example, more people are activating? What are you looking for? I think someone kind of answered it when explaining their problems. Revenue. No, that's from the other one. It can always get better. Oh, it is. It's Nina. Okay, yeah, I know Nina from way back. Yeah, anyway, yeah. That's so funny. Hi. Yeah. We got any more? Okay, I'm not sure. I have to like stick my head around like 380 degrees to see the question. So maybe we'll move on. So the last section of mastering marketing, at least for social causes, is we need to check that we're performing. And the most important thing probably is to make some really good content, to spend a little bit of time putting things together and telling your story well. And there are some really amazing presentations from people who are much better than I am at doing this in the Design for Change Week series of presentations. So I really want to draw your attention in particular to this talk by Christine, and I think Nick may have done it as well. Nick, the guy with the microphone who's sort of hiding behind me. And also this guy in pink, Ronnie Hormosa, who talked about storytelling and communicating social impact. I don't want to go over all of that again because these two people have given you all of the ingredients you need for creating content, but invest some time in that. And the reason I suggest you invest some time in that is because if you're telling great stories and it's well branded and well put together, then you will accidentally move a lot of people up the funnel or down the funnel, I suppose. It'll happen by accident. You probably want to figure out why it's happening, but if you do it well, it'll happen just by accident because you'll be standing out above all the other people who don't spend that time on putting something half decent together. But if you're still making 2-minute noodle marketing, that's okay too. Something is always better than nothing. Get Canva and put some stuff together. And when you do, well, you want to do it using an approach called lean marketing. And lean marketing changes the way many of you may work. And it kind of forces you to shift from thinking in terms of a year or a quarter or even a month. It kind of forces you to go down to a sprint. And when I say a sprint, I mean 1 or 2 week cycles of work. And your cycle should look something like this. Put together a really simple plan. Christine and Nick both talk about a content calendar. That's a great plan. But add to that content calendar a few extra things. Who are you targeting? What are you trying to move? What point are you trying to move them along to in the path? And how the hell are you going to tell if that actually worked? So plan, post, put it out there, measure because you've thought about how you're going to measure it, and then learn. When we do sprints, we have retrospectives where we just have a quick look. Doesn't take long, just half an hour. And we think about, okay, what went well? What didn't go well? How do we improve things next time? That's what I mean by learn. Now, a lot of the marketing people that I talk to, they kind of just do the first 2 steps. They plan and then they post and they might measure, but it's kind of vanity metrics. There's a lot of fall off there. And not many people just spend half an hour learning every week or 2. So I encourage you to do a sprint or a lean marketing sprint. Try it for like even just a month. I'm pretty confident it will help if you haven't tried it before. And the other thing is you really want to think about moving the needle on one thing at a time. Even at Canva, where there is, I think, 900 people, and at least, I think, 80 of them are people who have specializations in marketing or growth or performance marketing or SEO. We're really only focused on a couple of things. Each team is trying to solve 1 or 2 problems, even though there's this massive, massive organization behind it. So if you're just in a team of 1 or 10 or even 100, probably narrow down your focus. If you've got a long shopping list of things you'd like to make a difference on and things you'd like to change with your marketing, maybe just pick the top 1 or maybe 2 if you really, really have to. But if you're new to marketing sprints and you're new to this kind of tactic, pick 1. Then we're going to create posts. We're going to put together amazing content. We're going to run sprints where we plan out our week, our fortnight, maybe our month worth of posts. We're going to post them, we're going to measure, and we're going to learn. And what we're going to do is, what you'll almost certainly do is you'll discover that, say you do 5 different posts. Say you do Instagram stories, Facebook posts, and an email. And say you say a slightly different thing in each one. One of them will stand out. That's going to tell you something. You're going to learn something really cool. I guarantee you. Double down on that. Now, the method for doing this is, well, it doesn't actually have to be that complicated. There's amazing apps and tools and programs and things like that out there. But the only marketing tool you really need, it's not even Canva. All you really need is a spreadsheet. Although Canva definitely will help make everything a lot easier, trust me. I've tried to put together posts in Illustrator and things like that, and I'm so glad Canva exists. But a spreadsheet is all you really need. If you want to use a paid tool, a software as service tool, there's some really great ones out there. And in fact, if anyone can recommend one in the chat, I'd love to hear your recommendations because I'm sure a lot of you are using them. But if you're not ready for that, a spreadsheet is all you really need. Asana, yeah, I love Asana. Anyone a HubSpot user? I have no idea. I can't see all the questions. Like I get the flood and then Nick like picks 2. There we go. Yeah. Open Office. Wow. Trello. Yeah, nice. Amazing. Later. I don't think I've heard of that one. I need to check that out. All of these are doing basically the same thing here. And use them if you want because the user interface is way nicer than a spreadsheet. But all you really need is something like this. And basically this spreadsheet is like a content calendar and your evaluation, your like measuring and learning phase kind of smooshed into one. And so basically we're kind of moving from left to right on this spreadsheet and we're thinking about where are we going to talk to the person? Who is the person we're talking to? What type of content are we going to hit? What's that one thing we want to move the needle on? In this case, it's a reach of 10 million viewers. No, 100,000 viewers. I don't know why the comma's there. I'm having a bad day with commas. The copy, what are you going to put in your post? What are you going to write down in the actual post rather than the image or the content? What's the image? Have you done it? That way it's pretty easy to check where you're up to in your content schedule. What's the link to the post? So that in the future you can go back and you can check, okay, well, I did this like 3 years ago. I forgot what I posted or where it was. You can go back. That's going to really pay off when you've been doing this for a year or two. And there, some metrics. So in this case, because I'm thinking about acquisition, I'm looking at the reach, but I'm also catching a couple of other things. And then what I did was I kind of whacked it together into what's called an engagement score, which I pretty much just made up. Now, that's a big, ugly spreadsheet, and it's really hard to see on a slide, especially in a Zoom chat. So when you get the deck, this is a link to access that spreadsheet so that you can make a copy and you can try it out if you don't want to use a marketing tool or something like that. And give it a go, because even if you don't use a spreadsheet, well, it's going to help you use the tools you're using a little bit better. It might help you be a little bit more thoughtful, or maybe you're all over this already. But there are a few little Easter eggs in that sheet. I've thrown in a few extra resources, a few articles, a few links to books and things like that, so that if you do want to dig deeper into this stuff or some of it's new for you, well, there's a few things in there. All right, but if you're not ready to use a spreadsheet, if you're not ready to use a fancy tool, that's cool. Answer these two questions. What do you want to move the needle on? What's the most important thing? I think we've kind of answered this question a few times. Access to the spreadsheet, please. Yes, yes, that's going to happen. Was it Maya?
Lots of people asking for access to.
They're like, give it to me now. I only have a clicker. I would love to share it with you, but I don't think I can do it with this thing. But I will hook you up as soon as this is over. I promise. Yeah. So what do you want to move the needle on? What's the thing you want to try? Can I have a look? We've got lots of thank yous. Post link in chat. All right. Okay. And we want the recordings and decks. Okay. I'm still getting hammered with requests for the spreadsheet. It'll happen. Oh my God, we want it now. Okay. Try to engage more families to find us. Engagement, more social media engagement, more traction. Okay. These are great terms, but what the hell do they mean? You need to figure that out. When you say traction, does that mean, is that a retention thing? Is that more people actually engaging with your cause and donating or something like that? How are you going to measure that? If you don't measure it, it's not going to change. I want to increase the number of referrals to our program. That's a nice metric. I like that. So how are you going to measure it? I would measure referrals to my program. Well, it's pretty easy because you can see the signups. You can see how many people have signed up to your program. But then you might also want to check where those signups are coming from. Do you partner with a few different agencies? Which agency is doing the best with the referrals? Or is it actually coming through one of your social media channels? And the second question is, who can you pull in for your first marketing sprint, your first lean marketing sprint? And you kind of need a few people. You need a data nerd like me. You need a content producer. You need someone who's creative and can make things pretty. And thankfully, Canva means just about anyone can do that. But if someone knows their way around Canva, that's going to help. And hopefully you probably want a copywriter, someone who can write really well and think about how to say the most amazing things, to tell your story, just like Ronnie talked about, in the most short set of words, in the most convincing way. So if you don't have anyone for your marketing sprint, that's okay. I'll try and keep an eye on you in the Canva Not-for-Profits community. And there's a lot of other people in there who are happy to help, provide advice and feedback. So that's it. But the last thing I want to add just before we go into questions is that sometimes you might not have a marketing problem. Sometimes you have a product problem. And so one thing to notice is that if you're seeing people move through the funnel and they're still not connecting, it may be worth thinking about how are you talking about your cause? How are you talking about making a difference? What is the impact that you're having, and how are you showing people that you're having that impact? If you have an actual product, for example, I don't know, this clicker, how do you know it's actually working for the user? Because all the marketing in the world won't go too far if your product isn't very good. And vice versa, all the, if you have no marketing and a really good product, you'll grow just by accident. And then when you do turn on a good marketing funnel, that's going to help you grow way, way faster. You can kind of see that with Canva. Initially, there wasn't a huge amount of marketing, but it grew like crazy because it worked and it was something that people hadn't used before. So if you can think about that and invest a little bit of time in improving your product as well, that's going to help this work even better. All right, thank you. And questions, which I will try to answer, and we'll see how we go. Yeah.
Wow, awesome. Thanks so much, Ben. That was a fantastic presentation.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
Yep. Yeah, I think the chat is going crazy. So many people are loving your energy and your enthusiasm. So we do have a huge flood of questions. So I'll try to answer a few of the ones that are I hope most helpful. Mm-hmm. Sorry if we don't get to every question, but yes, we've got one from the beginning of your session. You talked about personas.
Yep.
So in building up a persona, do you need to define global ones for an organization or a different persona according to the platform? So for like a website or a social media channel, that sort of thing.
Yeah, so that's a tricky one. I would say always get as granular as you can, especially if you're part of a global business, because I mean, on Pixabay, for example, which is what I spend most of my time on at Canva, we have a German community and we have an English community. And the needs and the personas and the things that get people engaged in those two communities are very, very, very different. So I would be careful with the idea of a global persona, because I think you will probably find that there isn't one. There's probably, 3 or 4 big personas in particular locations, particular cultures, particular language groups, particular economic statuses and things like that. So maybe lock into one particular area, look at your metrics. Do you have like a huge following in the US or a huge following in Nigeria, wherever that is? Maybe just start investigating the persona there, and then maybe make the American one, and so on and so forth. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really helpful. Yeah, that's really good. Another question here. Do you conduct surveys to find out where potential donors spend their time? And I guess what's your advice with conducting research and surveys?
Yeah. Okay. So that is like definitely a 2-hour presentation in and of itself. But initially, keep it pretty simple. I would actually, if you haven't done user or customer or donor interviews, I would probably start there and then do the surveys a little bit later, because this is something I do at Pixabay every single week. I try and interview 1 or 2 people, even though I've been at Pixabay for about a year now, because the value you get from actually talking to the person, the amount of empathy you get and the amount of understanding you get is like way more powerful than most surveys. When you're feeling pretty comfortable that your persona is accurate and that you really know who you're talking to, okay, then it might be time to do a survey or a couple of surveys. But you'll probably find the questions you're asking are very different after you've spent or invested that time in building empathy with actual face-to-face or Zoom-to-Zoom conversations.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for that. Another question from Nina. So she asks, what percentage is normal to lose in each step of the funnel? So I guess like what's the base rate for?
Yeah. Oh, gee, that's a tricky one. Okay, so I reckon it could be as high as 70 to 80%. That's probably okay. But it also kind of depends on your channel as well. So for example, with like email marketing, I actually would expect sort of like 60% of people to disappear when you send them an email. Like you send them the email and 40% of people open them. That's pretty good. But on Facebook, well, there's this algorithm that gets in the way of everything. So I'd say the attrition rate, the number of people who disappear, should be higher. But if you really nail everything, well, so the first point is like the drop-off can be pretty extreme, and that's probably okay. Because if you get the right people coming through, then they're probably going to provide enough value. But it's probably not so much about the attrition rate between each step in the funnel as it is just trying to slightly improve it over time. Every business is different. Every cause is different. So every cause's metric will be different. So I'm kind of like giving you a guesstimate, but it could be different depending on what you do. It could be much higher if you're providing something, you're solving a problem that no one else is, or it could be much lower if there's 100,000 people doing the same thing.
Cool. That's really good. It's really helpful. I've got one here from Danny. So Danny asks, how can I make a marketing campaign for a controversial issue? So reproductive healthcare, abortions, for that sort of topics.
Yeah.
How do you make? Have you got any advice to share?
Yeah. So I guess with any controversial issue, it's important to think about the trauma. There's going to be a lot of people, typically in many issues, who've experienced some kind of trauma associated with the issue or have very strong beliefs. And often there's people with strong beliefs and there's people with trauma, and they're not the same person, which is interesting. Controversy is actually quite powerful in marketing tactics, but probably the main thing is because people will get attention, and a bit of friction, a bit of discussion, and a bit of debate is often actually quite effective. When I was at Chuffed, there was an organization that ran a queer formal, so a formal for people who were LGBTQIA+, who couldn't take their partner of choice to their formal because there were some sort of stricter guidelines about that. And they were fundraising for that, and they actually got a lot of negative attention about that. A lot of people who were very unhappy about that and weren't comfortable with it. And that actually drastically increased the number of people who donated, because in response, many more people who had lived experience of this wanted to help. So controversy is okay. Take care. I think the main thing is try not to hurt or upset or cause pain for people if you can. Give people space. Give people, options for getting support if it's super triggering for them. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good.
And don't feed the trolls. That's the other thing. That's like golden rule number 1. Sorry. Yeah.
Don't feed the trolls.
You're going to get trolls. You're going to get people who just they might not even actually care, but for them, I go on LAN and play like a card game or watch a YouTube channel, but there's some people who like to just start trouble. Don't feed them. Quietly remove their comments or don't engage with them. For them, it's like fun. It's not actually a debate. Watch out for that. Don't feed it.
That's so true. Haters gonna hate, right?
Yeah. Basically, haters gonna hate, and they're not your person. So why spend time on them? Yeah.
All right. Yes. Good advice. Sam asks a little bit of a potentially complicated question. How do you go about creating a channel strategy? Is it as simple as auditing your past content and seeing what formats, content style works?
Yep.
Or should you create a psychographics personas per channel?
That's a good one. So look, an audit is always good. It sounds like, what was the person's name? Sam, it sounds like you're kind of already doing a lot of this stuff, which is amazing. Good on you. And I hope you jump into the Canva NFP community and help a few other people too. But if you're already producing content, if you're already putting stuff out there, then it sounds like, an audit is a great idea because you've got this absolute goldmine of information there already. In terms of psychographics, demographics, and things like that, it's kind of up to you and how much time you want to invest into it. I really like psychographics. I really like thinking about what makes a person tick, what sort of things are in their background that have driven them towards you, but it's not entirely necessary. You can start a little bit simpler. I don't know if that kind of answers it. That's like a deep question. Great, but yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's really good. Well, if you're happy to answer a few more, I've got a few more for you.
And then I really have to go to the loo.
Okay. So Becky is asking, how do you measure engagement from bots versus real people? Obviously on social media, there's a big problem with bots these days. You got any advice there?
Yeah. That's a tricky one. Typically bots are highly targeted. Typically, So there's actually probably two core groups of bots. So the first bot is a spam bot. And so a spam bot is someone who, you'll know them from a mile off because it'll be like, hey, I'm giving back to my community, donate Bitcoin and I'll double the donation back, which was happened with the recent Twitter hack. Everyone knew that was a bot. It got shut down very quickly. I hope not too many people fell for it. But when you report that or you clear it off, last time I checked, and hopefully it's still the case, that's going to get cleared out of your analytics. So as long as you're doing some good moderation, and you should clean up comments and things like that, that's likely going to reduce the number of bots. The other type of bot is the bot that someone has paid for. So if someone has bought followers, they've bought access to a botnet and a farm of people who have created accounts. And so really, it's highly unlikely that you're going to have 100,000 bot followers unless you've paid for it. There might be one or two, and they might slip under the radar, but I would be very surprised if it's going to massively tip your metrics. You have to pay for bots, typically. Yeah. All right.
Very good. Just one more, and then I've got a small follow-up question as well.
Yep.
So we're just wondering, when you talked about the slide, what makes your person angry?
Yep.
Is there another emotion that we can use in place of anger? I suppose maybe like frustration.
Yeah. I guess in the product world, we talk about pain points. What causes pain? And if you're uncomfortable with pain, that's okay too. What causes discomfort? What is it? The world is full of discomfort, and discomfort is okay. It's something we have to learn to live with. But if you can understand what that is, that's kind of the same thing. I think it's sometimes okay to be angry about some of the big problems in the world. So that's a tricky emotion. There's a lot of connotations and, again, some trauma attached to the emotion of anger. But sometimes people are really angry about some of the stuff that's happening in the world. So if you're not comfortable with that, totally fine. Think about discomfort. Think about pain points.
I think another one is think about friction.
Friction. Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, and one last question, just a personal one for you, Ben. How does everyone on here find you on LinkedIn or social media, or where can they get in touch with you?
So I'm just Ben Davies on LinkedIn. I think maybe I can drop in my LinkedIn handle somewhere, maybe in the follow-up slides. But just search for Ben Davies at Canva. I think there's a lot of Bens, but there's only one Ben Davies at Canva. So hopefully you can find me with that.
Yeah, awesome.
I didn't really do it for the publicity. Maybe I should have put something in there.
No, that's okay. And there's a whole bunch of other questions here, but what I'll do is we'll wrap it up here. Please jump onto our nonprofit community on Facebook, and you can post your questions there. And there's a whole team of us on there who can get back to you, and you can engage with some really interesting people.
Yeah, it's definitely worth doing. You get me and a bunch of other people who actually know a whole lot more than I do. So it's definitely worth doing. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, everybody.